Fangs and Infernos. We're getting towards the end of New Jersey HorrorCon. It's been an absolutely awesome weekend. We've been having a great time. The talent has been so hospitable, and we really appreciate Ryan and all of his staff's continuous efforts, as well as their invitations that bring myself and Devil back each time. And we're going to keep the good times rolling with another great conversation. I'm very, very excited to bring on Kevin. We've got Basket Case. We're going to get a little crazy for a couple of minutes at the end of the con. But Kevin, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to talk to us.
My pleasure.
Absolute pleasure for us as well. And I myself, Devil can attest to this. I'm a big fan of Frank's work, the movies that he does, of which you are a huge part of. We'll jump right into it, of course. It is a HorrorCon. Basket Case. We're keeping Belial a little under wraps for the time being, so hopefully he doesn't think I talk too much. But how did Basket Case come along? And again, thank you so much for giving us such a fun trilogy.
Oh, thank you. How did the original film come about?
Yeah, and how did you get involved in?
I was studying acting. I was a theater student at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. And Ilsa, who plays the social worker with the glasses, she's the assistant. She was the assistant registrar there, and she knew Frank.
Oh,
so excuse me. One day, Ilsa says to me, "I know this guy that makes films. You should meet him." I said, "Okay." So I went and met him, and ended up doing 3 background parts in Slash of the Knife, which was the film prior to Basket Case. And he liked the way I worked and thought I was good enough. And a few months later, he called me up with this idea for a film. And he did the pitch. And when Frank does a pitch, he does it like 100%. And at the end, he says, "What do you think?" Yeah, sign me up. That was it.
That's so awesome. And how do you look back at that movie stylistically and like visually now? Because we've had conversations not only just with other fans this weekend, but also amongst ourselves about like visual effects back in the day, practical effects versus so much CGI now. And with, Belial being incredibly close to you, it's got to be a very, very interesting, dynamic to work that, but also probably a little bit taxing having that, attachment.
Well, the thing with an effect is it's meant to be an effect, not used all the time. For an example, a guitarist gets a new pedal. They play with it through that pedal all the time for the first week or two. And then, slowly they start thinking, well, maybe this song needs a clean sound, or maybe that song needs something else. And eventually it comes back to the point where it's an effect. An effect is only effective if it's used as an effect, sparingly. I think the problem with a lot of the films is overuse of the CGI right now.
Sure.
I was watching a behind the scenes for something I don't remember, and it was 3 actors on a green stage with a green floor, a green background, and they're doing their thing, in midair with nothing. And but when you see it, there's monsters and explosions and swords and theaters. See, just like we're talking, theater is better when there's that back and forth, because you work with another actor, you get something from him, right?
Yeah, sure.
There's a reason it's called a dialogue.
Yeah, that monologue. Well, that's more of a solo type situation.
So, as far as effect, that kind of lays out my thoughts on that. Practical effects rule, I think, because it gives the actor more to work on. There's the famous story of Ian McCullen talking about sitting alone in Frodo's house talking to a green tennis ball.
Yeah.
And he's a great actor, and he hated it. Oh, for the same reasons. So I think I've rambled off of your subject.
No, that's okay. Before I kick it up to Devil for a little bit, one thing also with Basket Case that I wanted to talk to you personally about with your performance, because of how much I loved your performance in a movie that I care so much about, is how did you look at your own dynamic of like secrecy versus paranoia? Because your character is got this brother that would be shunned by the world, of course. And you have this dynamic of like, traveling around with him, making sure he has enough attention and he's feeling the love, but at the same time, you still have your own life, your own needs. There's love interests that come into play. How did you look at it as an actor, understanding you were really going to have to tap into a few different parts of your brain?
The psychology of character behavior is fundamental in acting. You can't be a good actor unless you understand the psychology of human behavior. We're, present company accepted, we're a primitive species, and you have to understand how that all works. And the Bradley brothers considered themselves one entity, not two. So, in addition to that paranoia of always keeping it secret yet close, there's the loss, the ambiguous loss that they both experience, and the psychic connection that always is reinforcing that. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Very cool, for sure. Devil, my friend.
Yeah. So like I said, we had Basket Case as one of our early episodes that we talked about on it. And, since I have you here and stuff like that, when you guys made that first movie and obviously how it ended, did you ever think there was going to be a sequel? Because as far as movies go where there are sequels, it kind of leans to a sequel. But the ending of the first movie kind of ends with almost 100% no chance of a sequel, and then we've got two other movies.
It seems very final.
Yeah, it seems like this is the end that you're gonna see of the brothers, and then two more come.
For years, that's what Frank said. They died.
Yeah.
And so he was in the process of selling Frankenhooker to Jim Glickenhaus. And he was in person, doing the pitch in person. And he's in Jim's office. And, when Frank does a pitch, he performs the whole film for you.
Yeah.
And he's very good at it, too, by the way. And so at the end, he's done. He's fried. Jim says, "That's great. What else you got?" And so he just this is what I've heard from Frank. He just inadvertently blurted out, "Basket Case 2?" And Jim said, "All right, we'll do them both." And that's how it happened.
Oh, wow.
So Frank was on catch-up mode a little bit there at first.
Yeah, because that's what I said. It's like, when you talk about like the sequels, it's like, okay, maybe, like Critters, you have that very end where you see a critter a little bit. Okay, maybe there's a sequel. There's such a definitive plot. That's the end.
Frank got a real budget for Frankenhooker.
Yep.
Basket
Case 2. Yeah.
Basket Case 3. And, that's real enticing, to be able to... We shot Basket Case in 16 millimeter using short ends, scraping every time together to pull it off. So to be able to have 35 millimeter cameras, that's like a filmmaker's dream. So
yeah,
so we went for it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how was that experience? Because obviously you could tell Basket Case 1 is very, like you said, it's very low budget DIY, and then 2 and 3 you can definitely tell there was more money in the project. Yeah. How was it like doing those movies, the 2 and 3, having a little bit more better wiggle room versus what you had for 1?
Well, it's great. We think of this. Frank and Gabe Bertalis, who did all the effects, who's a really cool guy and a great effects guy, by the way. They did all of those effects for Basket Case 2, and then all of those effects for Frankenhooker.
Yeah.
These two were nuts at that time. That's a crazy thing to attempt. Budget. Yeah, it's nice. Working in 35 is really cool.
Yeah.
There are drawbacks to it. We had an absolute schedule.
Well,
in the first film, we spent a year making it. So, when people were available and they had film stock, we would do a scene. In 2 and 3, you had that 6 weeks. You got to get everything done. And so you want a story, a short story?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Medium length story. So that was basket case 3. The suits have a formula. So many pages of script equals so much time, minutes
so much,
screen time. The end of the first week of shooting, the suit comes up and says, "We're ahead. You got to cut a scene." Okay, so Frank picked the scene to cut. I don't remember what it was. So we continue. The end of the second to last week, the same suit comes up to us. "We're behind. We need something else." So Frank is like, but you're not going to write anything new, right? Oh, no. So that night he writes the scene where after the carnage in the sheriff's office, I come down the hill and discover he is injured. That's the scene he wrote. So, to shoot it, we got there. I spent the morning pacing the parking lot to learn the scene. And we shot it, but that just shows you the problem with more money is more.
Well, yeah,
more
you have somebody behind you.
What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
I don't know. It's the best and the worst.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure if you go on a Tom Cruise movie or something, it's really intense. With people watching every second ticking away.
Yeah.
Every second, every dollar.
We need to do that scene again. Well, that scene again is going to cost a couple $1 million. So wrap it.
Somebody like Clint Eastwood, for example, is renowned for using the first take.
Yeah.
There's a great Matt Damon story. I don't know if you've heard this one. Yeah. So, it's money changes everything.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. And then one other thing that we definitely wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about is we'd love to hear a little bit about your stone cutting academy.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
So it's the Hunter Stone Carving Seminar. It's a free 2-week stone carving class. Takes place in the mountains of Greene County in Hunter, New York.
Nice.
The mountaintop region of the Hunter Mountains, of the Catskill Mountains. The website is freehscs.com. If we get our grant, we will find out in March or April. So the website will give dates and all that at that point. But this will be our 17th year doing it.
Oh, nice.
People think stone carving has to be really hard, right? Only if your name is Michelangelo can you even approach it, right? But that's not the case at all. Primitive peoples did this with a sharp rock held in their hand.
Yeah.
170,000 years ago. And we have much better tools. So
I'll admit it makes. I think to myself when I think of something like that as somebody who really isn't particularly artistic, where I'm just like, I'd never be able to do that class. I'd never be able. The thing would just break into a million pieces, and I'd be like, that's not a thing. But again, hearing it where it is better tools, more education, experienced teachers letting you know, be like, whoa, if you go in with a sledgehammer, of course you're going to get, a sledgehammer result. But if you map it out little by little, It sounds like, the stone carving commoners like myself could really learn a thing or two.
Well, I've had 4-year-olds carving with an air hammer in a half an hour.
Oh, wow.
Now what they carve is what a 4-year-old can visualize.
Obviously.
Sure.
But there's a sculpture park in Tannersville, New York, with over 300 petroglyphs that have been left by the students over the years. And some of them are museum quality.
Oh, wow.
So, and a lot of those people said just what you said. I'm not artistic. I can't draw a stick figure. I'll ruin it, blah, blah, blah. But we'll give it a shot and try it, And
Yeah, you never know.
you know what? 2 hours later, they're into it and they're having a great time.
And how did you get involved? Because that's a very unique, direction to go. Like there's like there's a musician by the name of Shuri Curry, if you're familiar with her, that
Yeah.
of course fronted the Runaways, who became very well known for chainsaw carving.
Oh, I didn't know
Outside,
that.
yeah, outside of her her
Wow.
musical career, she's a very passionate and now very experienced chainsaw artist.
Wow.
So that's a very unique skill set and direction to go outside of the acting world, Kevin.
Chainsaw is a rough tool.
Absolutely.
I mean, they use little tiny ones and a short bar with a point. The tools we use are much easier to handle than that,
Yeah.
by the way. But okay, so that story. I was still in the academy. Annette and I decided to go see a Ken Russell film at the Little Carnegie Cinema, which was around the corner from Carnegie Hall. It used to be like, in the 70s, it was like an art house. They would play like old Fellini films and Ingmar Bergman festivals. So we went up there and saw The Savage Messiah by Ken Russell, which is about a real sculptor in the time of World War I. And in the course of the film, they showed a close-up of a carver's hands working a block of marble. And I was so turned on to the idea of a stone as a plastic medium. I started haunting the local sculpture supply, which was coincidentally half a block from the academy. So eventually I got 3 chisels and a hammer, found a rock in the East Village, set up a workbench under what is now called the High Line. In those days, it was just an abandoned elevated railroad. And, the girls work in 11th Avenue. It's an abandoned, derelict neighborhood. But the first moment that I touched steel to stone, there was this incredible thing that happened. Epiphany, revelation, whatever you want to call it. But this was what I was meant to do. And that moment powers me to this day.
Oh, that's so awesome for sure. Devil, my friend?
Oh no, man. Do you have anything that you're, other than the stone stuff? Do you have any more acting stuff that you can talk about that we might see you in the future, or anything you could talk about what your plans are for the rest of this year, if you can talk about it?
Well, the only thing in the books right now, I'm doing Crypticon in Kansas City, Missouri, later on this year. And the Hunter Stone Carving Seminar, that's free, HSCS.com. And that's it, trying to keep my old truck running.
Yeah.
And as like a final thing, how was it here at New Jersey HorrorCon, having Frank right next to you?
This is a great show.
It's got to be so cool
Yeah,
to
I
also
haven't
have
seen
somebody
Frank in a while.
for so long that's been a part of your life that you haven't seen. Not that there's a reconnection that necessarily needs to happen, but that had to be very cool to have Frank right next door.
Oh yeah. We've kept in touch over the years. We're friends, and Ryan had contacted me about doing this, and I'd been coincidentally talking to Frank, I don't know, the week before or something, and he said he was interested in starting to do more shows. So it worked out perfectly.
No, nice.
So,
Well, Kevin,
this is a great show, by the way, the New Jersey HorrorCon.
Yes, absolutely it is, and it really is. Devil and myself always have such a good time, thanks in Inferno. So if you haven't come out to enjoy it, definitely put it on your calendars and definitely come check it out so you can hang out with all the talent and also hang out with Kevin as well. But Kevin, thank you so much for making some time for us.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks in Infernos. We love you guys so much. We're going to see what else is popping here for the New Jersey HorrorCon, but we've been having an absolute great time. I'm Vampire, he's Devil, but most importantly, he is Kevin VanHentenryck, and we are really, really pleased that we got to sit down with him. And we'll see you guys very, very soon. And Kevin, again, thank you so much, and best wishes for this year.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Horns up, Fangs. Fangs out.